let's talk about procrastination. And just ignore the fact that I'm not wearing any eyeliner and I look like I'm 13 and haven't slept for 3 days. Okay? We're all familiar with senioritis. And if somehow you're not familiar with senioritis, let me give you the 5-second breakdown. When you're almost done with school and the end is in sight, you just don't want to do the last bit of work. Because you're tired and you're just unmotivated, and I don't know. There's so little left to do in comparison with everything that you've done to this point. You're just like, I can do it later, and it's so bad. I had pretty bad senioritis in high school. I had it kind of in college. Oh man, am I experiencing it in grad school. I just don't want to do any more work. Partly because I haven't done any academic work really since the end of May. Middle of May. And now it's the middle of August. So I haven't really been, I guess the word is in the zone. So it kind of takes a lot to kind of psych me up mentally in order to get any academic work done. I have been spending the summer doing readings for my comprehensive exams, which I took yesterday and the day before, and I'll talk about that in a second. So, I mean, it's not that I haven't been doing any academic work at all, but nothing that was, immediately, how do I put this? It was all very long-term project stuff, and nothing that I could kind of force myself to get through because it had to be done in 2 days. So when I'm in charge of my own timetable, I'm either really good at getting everything done at once, or I'll put it off forever, depending on what kind of project it is, how much energy it'll take, what kinds of things it'll require from me, blah, 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 blah. And comps reading, I had 20 titles to read, like 15 books and 5 articles. And it was just, I hate theory is what it comes down to. I hate theoretical reasoning, especially when getting down to the nitty-gritty of translation, because I don't see the point in using theory when you're doing a job that is so individual in its execution. You can talk about why we do things as much as you want, and it can be interesting, and you can get into lots of friendly debates and everything, and you can get to know a lot about yourself and how you think about processes and all of that. But for me, at least, I find knowing and thinking too much about theory when I'm trying to do something makes me get way too cerebral, and I just lose focus, and I overthink, and I second guess myself. See, I'm good at English now. I second guess myself, and I get in my own head and I'm in my own way, and I don't like doing it. So now imagine spending an entire summer reading books where people are arguing with each other through very long-winded arguments and using a lot of examples of things that you have no way to really understand because they do it in language pairs that you don't use. A lot of the language pairs were like Mandarin and English, and I didn't understand anything about Mandarin, so like a lot of the points that they were trying to make were lost on me. And it was just a lot of reading that I didn't like to do, but I had to do in order to take my comprehensive exams. What that means is, for anybody that hasn't gone through it, you go through your grad school coursework, you take your classes, you do your requirements. For me, that was 10 classes and an internship. No, 9 classes and an internship. And after all of that is done, you take your comprehensive exams to show essentially that you understand the material that you've been learning over the past however many years you've been in grad school. For me, it was 2 years. And if you pass that, then you get to graduate. And if you don't pass that, you just wasted 2 years. So my comps involved, I was really lucky that I didn't have to go anywhere to take the comps. I could do them all on my own computer from my own home, because I would just email my materials back and forth with my comps committee. and it involved a translation of, I'd say, 2/3 of a page of a legal document. It was a housing contract that talked about security deposits and parking space rentals. And I had an hour to translate that from French into English, and I got to use print dictionaries, online resources, whatever. And that I feel pretty happy with. The phone's ringing.
Call from Berlin Orchestra.
I'm just going to show you real quick. This is what happens when our phone rings.
Berlin Orchestra.
And it's impossible to understand what they're saying, but this is what it is.
Call from Berlin Orchestra. Call from Berlin Orchestra.
It's trying to say Minnesota Orchestra, but the phone is the worst at reading, reading names out loud. Like when TPT TV calls, which is a channel that's in our region, when TPT TV calls us, it comes through as. Or when my mom calls from work, it comes through as DLR group, which is the group that she works for, so it makes perfect sense, and it reads as group. So, I don't even know. I don't even want to know what happens when I call the house. Okay, so the translation, I feel pretty good about it. It made sense to me. I didn't leave anything untranslated. I did my research. I made sure that I was using terms that were contemporary and all of that. And then after the translation, I had 24 hours to write an 8 to 12 page theory-based paper. And the prompts were not given to me in advance, so it was the kind of test where you can't really prepare for it other than just reading over theory again and again and trying to make sure that you understand what the basic points are that big theorists are trying to make. And I am the kind of person that cannot contain multiple theories in my head at once. I can focus on one and maybe two really in-depth and be confident in it, but then when you've got like 7 or 10 or whatever conflicting theorists and some supporting each other and others kind of refuting each other, it all drops out of my head. I have the hardest time retaining it all. So I prepared as best I could by every time I read a book, I would take notes on like certain quotations that I thought I might be able to use later, because I knew I was going to be, I got to choose 5 of the titles for my comps reading list, and I chose all medical translation titles because medical translation was the favorite of all the units that we did in my seminars. And so I was looking for things, I knew I got to skip over a lot of the literary translation stuff and all of that, so I just gathered as much raw text as I could from my books and titles and everything, and dumped it all into a Word document so that when I got my prompt, I could just go through, read through all of my quotes. I think it came up to something like 60 pages, single-spaced, in a Word document, so there was a lot there. So I went through all of that when I got my prompt, pulled out the ones that could be applicable to my paper, which was about 12 pages single-spaced Word, and just kind of went through it. My prompt was something along the lines of, there does not currently exist a standard for medical translation work in the United States. If there were to exist such a standard of medical translation, what elements would exist within the scope of the standard? What are some challenges that present itself to the creation of a standard, and would it help? And so I went through my work, and this started on Monday at about 11:30 a.m., the day after I got back from Nova Scotia, so I had no time to unwind from vacation because I had to start rereading old texts and all of that. But I went through all of my old quotes, got them organized, started building an outline, flushed out my outline, wrote my paper, read it about 12 times, went to bed for about 4 hours, had my dad wake me up at 8 in the morning, and I read over it one more time. I made him read over it one more time to make sure that my English was intelligible. read over it twice more, made my works cited page and everything like that, and then just kind of sent it off and prayed to the gods that it'll all be okay. And then just kind of stood up and went, I wrote a paper in 24 hours. And that paper is going to determine whether or not I wasted the last 2 years of my life. So I'm a little bit in the twilight zone of grad school right now. I will find out whether or not the paper was good enough to move to the next stage, which is called reflection. I'm going to find out about it tomorrow, though my committee chair said by Thursday. So I don't know if that means Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon. I'm really hoping Thursday morning, but we shall see. And then if my paper is good enough, I will move on to reflection, as I said, where it pretty much just means the committee will send me a list of up to 8 questions about my paper and about my translation, and I'll just have to explain some of the choices that I made, and I'll have, I think, 4 hours to do that. And then after that, it'll be done and dusted. And so obviously that takes a lot of mental tax. All of that stuff that I just described. I feel like it's a mental tax even listening to me explain it now and going off on all of my rants. And you can tell that my brain is going in a million different places at once because it's falling apart. And so now, with that image of being mentally taxed, having a hard time focusing on things, and having just gone through a lot of academic rigor in a very short amount of time, now imagine that you have another paper to write that you probably should have written a couple of weeks ago, that's due on Friday. Today's Wednesday. It's like 9 p.m. I was supposed to spend all day writing. Haven't done that. Knowing that it won't be that hard to write this paper because it does not have to be a theory paper. It's all experiential. Is that a word? It's a narrative paper. So I pretty much just get to tell a story of the internships that I've been doing over the summer, which is a whole other thing, another course requirement for this master's. And I can't bring myself. I've got the Word document open on my computer, but YouTube is right there. My camera stopped recording. I think that just happens after it gets tired of hearing me rant. In any case, it's taking a long time to offload media content because the program keeps crashing, and so I keep on having to reboot it. Great way to waste time, but not so good for my productivity. So I think I'm probably going to end up writing a bare bones outline of the project, of the paper tonight, flush it out tomorrow, edit it Friday morning. Because on Friday afternoon I'm going out to Lake Sullivan with some friends for the weekend. And it's due on Friday anyway, so I might as well, I have to get it done by Friday morning. And I think it's just some part of my head that's being like, that knows it's not going to take a very long time to write the paper because it's a narrative and because compared to what I just wrote, which was so hard for this comps exam, this one will be much easier mentally. But it's going to be longer, and I have to have more. I have to format it more, and I have to have more things around. Like, there has to be this whole like appendices of like correspondences and samples and glossaries and all of that, and I have to build that, which is going to take time. And I just want to watch Netflix. I've been keeping I keep up with a few different TV series, but I've been keeping some of them for rewards for when I finish certain benchmarks. That's how I work generally. I make a reward system. So like, if you get through this chapter, you are allowed to make yourself dinner or something like that. And so I've got Parks and Rec. I've got the last half of the latest Once Upon a Time season. I've got Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I've been working my way through Teen Wolf. Oh, I love Teen Wolf. Lots of stuff, and I just want to sit and watch that. Next Tuesday, I will be completely done with all of this stuff, and then I can watch whatever I want. Alright. So, I just spent a good 15 minutes-ish talking about me not wanting to do work. So now I should probably do some work. What that really means is I'm going to go forage in the fridge.